Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is Kidney at BloodyElbow.com. Joined once again by Zane Simon at Bloody Elbow as well. UFC 198 is in the books, and Fabricio Werdum is not. I repeat, Fabricio Werdum is not the greatest heavyweight in UFC history.
I want to say I called it, but I really called Stipe to take a decision. And I mean, the biggest reason why is just nobody keeps the heavyweight belt. Like, no matter how good a guy is, everybody we trumpet and are like, oh, this guy can't be beaten, whether it's Cain Velasquez, Judah, Santos, and now Fabricio Werdum, they always lose to the next random challenger that comes up. And it just,
It could
I
be
felt like this was the right one.
it could be the curse of Ken Shamrock. The Pride Championship belt, of course, was virtually monopolized by Antonio Minotauro Nogueira and Fedor Emelianenko for the entire tenure of Pride. And then,
Yeah, but I think Fedor only defended it like once officially.
yeah, but everybody knew who the man was in the division, and he was racking up
I
a huge list. I mean, technically the title, blah blah blah, but there was the
Yeah,
champ, and he was the best, and he was there for a long time. Whereas Ken Shamrock started off the whole UFC heavyweight division with a whole litany of jinxes, and there really hasn't been that dominant a champion. It's been an exchange of titles, and now Stipe Miocic is the champ. Congrats to Miocic. He fought a great fight. Werdum did not fight a great fight. What the heck was Fabricio Werdum thinking, charging wildly at Stipe Miocic like that?
I mean, Verdun, he does a lot of that stuff though. He covers for it. He's always covered for it by having a really great chin and just being able to take damage, and by generally being fitter than his opponents. Whether it was Cain Velasquez up at in Mexico City at elevation and not training for that, or Mark Hunt at elevation and not training for it.
Hunt had an excuse because he got the fight on very short notice. Cain apparently had some sort of elevation in a can thing technology that he thought was going to substitute for fighting at 8,000 feet, which, newsflash, there's no substitute for training at that altitude. Stipe knocked him out.
Yeah.
Cold.
I mean, Verdum's always done a bunch of weird crap. He gets dropped in the first round of most of his fights, and it's just he survives it, and then he does really well, and he rallies back, and everybody kind of forgets about it, and that's kind of...
And tonight they won't, because 2 minutes 47 seconds into it, knockout punch, Stipe Miocic's new heavyweight champion. And now what the heck happens in the division? Cain Velasquez presumably is supposedly going to be healthy sometime soon and would be in line for the title shot since he was supposed to get the title shot.
Yeah,
tonight.
I assume Cain versus Miocic, and that would be an awesome fight, Like, that's a cool fight. I'm ready for it. I'm just as ready for it as I would be Cain versus Werdum, too. It's not... Werdum is obviously a much bigger draw in Brazil, but I don't know that any of these guys has proven themselves to be a surefire pay-per-view hit.
Definitely not. No.
Cain I don't know that
had a chance.
I don't know that rotating them all through is a problem.
No, they're pretty interchangeable. It's UFC heavyweight title, and they tend to put it on set cards like they did tonight, where you had really a litany of Brazilian legends on this card, and in the co-main event, Ronaldo Jacare Souza totally demolished Vitor Belfort, TKO. First round, got him in the mount position, 4 minutes, 38 seconds. Took him almost the full round, but I think it was the second takedown attempt he got him down on, and he Belforted him. That's what they call it when Randy Couture pinned Belfort down on the ground and beat him up against the fence, and Jacare followed that playbook. Just take Vitor out of the fight and beat his ass until it's over.
Since Vitor Belfort started fighting, he has won, like, you can probably count the number of decisions Vitor Belfort has won on one hand, and the number of fights that that he's won outside of the first round on one hand.
Yes.
Like, he wins early or he falls to pieces, and this has always been the way it goes.
Yep.
The moment anything starts going wrong, all the wheels fly off, and he's done.
He did give a fairly gritty performance against John Jones, I have to say.
He did, and that remains one of the more remarkable things of his career, honestly.
Yeah, it really does. And Vitor is another one of these kids. I've been following him since his career started when he beat up John Hess in Hawaii many, many years ago, and he's still calling him Vitor Gracie.
So good.
And the kid has always found a way. I mean, he either blitzes you or, something funny goes on. And Vitor folds. Randy Couture was the first one to expose that. And Jacare, he lost his last fight after like an 8-fight winning streak after losing the Strikeforce title to Luke Rockhold, and had a strong case for a title shot, but then lost to Yoel Romero by split decision. Romero fails the drug test. To me, that gives Jacare the bye on that loss to a certain extent as far as the title picture goes. And beating Belfort like this emphatically, Jacare has got to get the title shot against the winner of Luke Rockhold and Chris Weidman, which is going to happen at UFC 199 in approximately.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only – the UFC generally does a really good job of making sure that at any one time there's only one real surefire title challenger lined up. Like, they tend to keep guys at the top of the division matched up just well enough and make them wait long enough that when it comes time for somebody to get a shot, there's only one guy who deserves it, and Belfort or Jacare is the only guy right now who deserves it.
Yeah, he looked sharp. He looked deadly, very serious. Gave Belfort really no chance. Missed the first takedown, but that was it.
Yeah, it was as good a performance as he could have, and he did. You could tell Belfort was going to be in a lot of trouble in the first exchange when Jacare was able to just clinch up with him right away, and Belfort did nothing to dissuade Jacare from closing distance. It's like, if you're just going to let Jacare come in and grab you and make contact, then he's going to find a way to get you to the ground.
Yeah.
Belfort either had to keep him way outside and scare him off with power early, or this was going to happen.
Yes, and happen it did. Belfort's face was bloodied very quickly, and as Jacare methodically advanced position on the ground. And by the time he had him in mount position, that was one of the more, I don't want to say pathetic, because nobody could do any better in that position, but Belfort was floundering on his back, just taking a beating, and there was nothing he could do about it.
It's just always the way it is with him. I mean, like I say, when things start going wrong, he did the same thing with Weidman. He tried to punch his way out of mount against Chris Weidman when he lost to him.
Yes.
Things go wrong, and they just go very wrong.
Yeah, but against Weidman, he got his licks in, nearly knocked out the then champion, and not tonight. And then in the third fight down on the card, Cris Cyborg made her UFC debut, obliterated Leslie Smith, catch weight 140 pounds. They've had this weirdness about keeping her out of the UFC forever. She can't fight at 135. They refuse to make a 145-pound division, which frankly makes not a great deal of sense. I mean,
there's no reason to have a 145 division, honestly. I just don't understand why they don't just have Cris Cyborg and
at 145.
Bring her in for her five. Yeah, bring her in for her fights.
Why not just call that a division and give her a belt? And that's, like have Invicta as the actual division.
I just think that if they do that, then you get a bunch of fans who are going to be like constantly in there. You're like, oh, well, why did you grow the division? Why did you do X, Y, Z? Just put her in the UFC. Make sure every one of her fights is on a UFC card. That's all there is to it.
Yep. She's a star. She's not Ronda Rousey, but she's a star. I don't know that she's Misha Tate even or Holly Holm. She's going to have extremely low ceiling as far as American media exposure probably, but perfectly likable person other than the steroids incidents. And, fighters do that. Like, we're trying to crack down on it, but I'm not going to hold that personally against somebody. She seems like
Lyoto
a sweetheart.
Machida just failed the fucking drug test. Are people going to start hating Lyoto Machida now?
Well, he is a piss drinker.
I know, but still.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna. If you drink piss and talk about it, I'm gonna talk about it too. All right. So yeah,
but the thing with Cyborg here, just one thing. The thing with Cyborg is that while she may never be a huge star, you can put her in the middle of any pay-per-view like this, and you are sure to have a massive highlight reel fight in the middle that'll get everybody excited.
Yes.
And then move on. Like,
people have opinions about her. They care about her. They'd love to get mad at her, and she delivers. You put basically anybody with 2X chromosomes in the cage with her, and you're going to see some violence against women. guaranteed. And there's an audience for that. Isn't this sick? Like, that's what it is, though. And this woman just mauls people. She's like putting people into a thresher, like when they put baby chicks in the giant suits at the meat factory. That's what this is like. It's beautiful, frankly. I mean, what are you going to do?
It's true. All right. We're going to move on.
She's very, very good in her job.
Before we get way too deep into the metaphorical weeds here, we need to move on.
Okay, all right. So on the other Brazilian legend front, Mauricio Shogun, who edged out Corey Anderson, nearly knocked Anderson out in the first round, and then struggled with him. Shogun doesn't have knees anymore, so he kept getting taken down, but he rode it out, got the split decision. And I'd love to know who the judge was who's brave enough in Shogun's hometown to put his name on a card that has Shogun losing a fight in which he got the most compelling offense.
Yeah, I saw a lot of angry people about that fight. There were a lot of hot take dudes who were just sure that Anderson won it. And I scored it for Anderson, but I cannot understand caring, honestly. Like, he had one dominant round and got dropped in each of the first 2 rounds. If that's your fight, you cannot expect to win on scorecards with that.
Especially not in the other dude's hometown. I mean...
Yeah. And Anderson's just struggling with this problem where he at light heavyweight, where everybody gets knocked out, everybody's a finisher. He's not. And if you have no way to finish fights, every fight is going to be these weird, ugly decisions that don't make people happy, and you're going to lose a lot of them. Yeah,
he's essentially in the role of a baseball pitcher facing a murderer's row of hitters. He's got to play a perfect game to nail-bite his way through it, whereas the other side can stumble, bumble, have errors in every inning, hit a grand slam, boom, and it's over. And almost everybody else in the light heavyweight division can hit a grand slam on your chin at any given point. And so, yeah, Corey Anderson, tough break. Honor for him to get to fight a legend like that. I'm sure he learned a great deal. Being in tight with somebody like Shogun, you're going to learn a lot about that person and what they're made of. And Shogun's made of steel. And it's cool. I was very happy to see that Shogun put on a credible performance. That's really all I wanted out of him. And
I was happy to see him not crumple the first time he got clipped really hard. I mean, part of that is that Anderson just doesn't have power for that division, it seems. But it's still like, it seems like every fight recently that Shogun's been in, he just gets hurt really bad. And this one he didn't. And that was great to see. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's run through the rest of the card real quick. I want to jump ahead to the Fight Pass card, the headliner on that one, Antonio Rogerio, Little Nog, the twin brother of the great heavyweight champion who's now retired, beat Patrick Cummins in the best performance we've seen on Little Nog his last win was in 2013, but that was against Rashad Evans in a pretty piss-poor staring match. This was a real fight. And his best win since 2011. Which one was that? Which one was 2011? That's Tito Ortiz. That was when he knocked out Tito Ortiz. That was a sweet moment. moment. And so, great performance from Little Nog. I had completely written him off going into this fight. My apologies. Glad to see him win. Happy to see him fight again, but not too, not stressing about it. If he wanted to retire off this, I'd be perfectly happy. He's had a great career. Yeah, that would be nice. Every fighter talks about going out on top, but you'll never see dudes who want to retire off a win. No. Every time they win, it's a new start. Patrick Cummins, like before this fight, they're talking about like, what he really wants to do is he wants to be more patient and like try and wait on his opponent, work his striking more, hit more reactive takedowns, and be less overly aggressive with his wrestling game. And it's like, is that really the game you want to play with the aged boxer? Like, all you have to do is bowl through this guy and throw him to the ground over and over. And you're like, nah, I think I'm just going to sit outside and let him hit me a lot and see what I can do. Indeed. And he learned that Little Nog still has some clout in his gloves. And 4 minutes, 52 seconds was all it took Little Nog to do it. But he almost went out the first round, but Patrick didn't quite make it. Opener for the whole card was Renato Moicano beating Zubair Tukhugov. Split decision. That was one of those fights where it sort of seemed like you were watching a good fight, but if you really thought about it, you really weren't, I liked it all right. It's two counter-punchers who were being forced to lead the whole fight because they are both counterpunchers, so they both had to create some offense, and neither of them are that great going forward. So you got a lot of weird, sort of sloppy moments. But
Yeah,
Carneiro just did enough and scored enough often enough to win. So
yep. It was, and both guys look good. Look like they could be potential. I don't know, contenders, but grow in the division. And I'm happy to see him fight again. And then you have welterweight Sergio Moraes get a draw against Luan Chagas. I wasn't entirely surprised by the draw, but you so rarely see a draw. And then when you have, rather than three judges voting for a draw, you have one judge vote for a draw, one judge vote for one guy, one judge vote for the other guy. So in a way, it's the most symmetrical draw decision you could get.
I'm happy with it. I mean, it was a draw. Chagas blasted Moraes all around the cage in the first round and then lost the next two rounds. So to me, it felt like a great case for a draw.
Yeah.
But just a terrible fight from Sergio Moraes. Really bad. Chagas looked good, but it's a short notice, inexperienced, young fighter with an incomplete game, and he just ran through Moraes to start the fight, and then because he's massively muscled and throws all these wild, crazy strikes, Chagas gassed out.
Yeah, but that head kick he landed in the first round was pretty sweet, and Moraes, I don't know, he's an older fighter, got a late start in his UFC career. The ceiling's pretty low here, so but at least he didn't get the loss. But still, I'm not really losing any sleep over Moraes one way or the other.
I think it's more of a win than anything for Chagas just to get the draw.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah, he definitely acquitted himself, and the UFC is known for showing their appreciation for guys who take short notice fights to make their debuts. So expect to see him again. Then you had 4 fights on the Fox Sports 1 card, opening with bantamweight. John Lineker getting a unanimous decision over Rob Font. Lineker beat his ass pretty well, but never could put together the kill shot combination to really, get the finish.
Yeah, I think that I think a lot of that's on Font, who just fought a really defensive fight. He didn't ever get comfortable planting his feet and exchanging with Lineker, and nor should he have.
No, but that's because Lineker was landing combinations of the body and the head immediately, early and often.
Yep.
I mean, he asserted complete dominance over their fistic exchanges early, and I do think that the announcers had that Brian Stan was onto something when he was saying, when Lineker feints, that sets Font up nicely, but he never feinted. I mean, he did it a couple times, and boy, it worked. And then why bother? I'm just teeing off on this guy basically. So,
he's not experienced enough to know how to really take over a fight like that with an opponent who every time you try to sit down on something is going to come back at you with something a lot harder and a lot faster.
Yeah. So, Font was outmatched and good performance from Lineker. Glad to see him in the bantamweight division, even though he's a little bit small, but he just couldn't make the weight at flyweight. And with the new IV rules and different things, it's going to be harder and harder to fight.
Weight cutting rules changing now. You have to be within 8% on Tuesday of fight week, and
starting with UFC 200. Yeah, that's going to be
I've seen some fighters freaking out about that.
Oh yeah, they absolutely are. They're basically reshuffling the decks of all the weight classes, which is fine with me. I've always, from the time Tito Ortiz came in and introduced weight cutting to the UFC way back in the day. I mean, he brought it from college wrestling, but it hadn't been that big a deal in MMA before that, and it dramatically changed the game. And it'll be interesting to see how people adapt, and we'll see a different fight game. Then you had Francisco Trinaldo beat Yancy Medeiros, and really a fun fight. I mean, one guy won one round, the other guy won the next round, and then the first guy came back and won the third round. A lot of brutality here.
A hell of a slobber knocker. Trinaldo is really – I'm really shocked at how well Trinaldo has turned into a really fun action fighter. Like, he has completely – and every fight he seems to be tuning up his striking just a little bit more and a little bit more, and he's always been this big, powerful dude, and he's really consistent, powerful, may never be a completely dominant fighter. I mean, Medeiros was able to hurt him a few times. He's not young. There are tons of lightweights that can put a tough fight in front of him, but now you kind of are guaranteed with Trinaldo to get like a fun, crazy fight, and that was not what I expected out of him coming into the UFC.
No, he was looking like another one of these grinders.
Yeah.
that is just going to put on a tedium Marana every time out. But now he's delivering the fun, and it's probably ill-advised. I mean, maybe there's some upside to it if he can keep winning, but bad for his brain cells and probably bad for his UFC prospects over the long term. But in the short and medium term, it's good for him and good for us. So, and a good performance from Medeiros, really. I mean, he got beat up by Trinaldo in the first and the third, but he took it and kept coming back, and definitely some things to
Medeiros
fix
has an
up.
amazing ability to get totally shit kicked and then find some random opening and just absolutely devastate an opponent in that opening. And
Yes.
it's impressive that Trinaldo survived. I mean,
it really is. It really is. I think Medeiros is another one of these guys who needs to learn how to fight long. Like a jab and a push kick could go a long way for this kid.
He's got a ton of striking tools. He just kind of throws them all out at any random time. Like he'll just kind of double jab, then front kick, and then like lead with an uppercut, and then throw a hook and dance around. And you're never like it's like Dominic Cruz, but without all the footwork and head movement that goes with it.
Yeah.
So that like you're just throwing a bunch of random shit all the time
and getting hit.
Yeah, and getting hit a lot.
Yeah. Yes, and it doesn't add up to more than the sum of the parts for sure. But gritty performance, fun fight. It contributed to the fun vibe of the card. And then to close out the Fox Sports 1 card, Demian Maia utterly dominating Matt Brown for
Skipped
3.
one.
Oh, Thiago Santos. Thiago. How could I forget this? Thiago Santos blitzed Nate Marquardt, 339 in the first round. Just Marquardt didn't look terrible, but he didn't really do anything in the fight, and Santos looked good.
Yeah, Santos has also morphed really well. He looks like he's ready to be a top 10 middleweight. He's
really?
got. I think so. I mean, what are the edges of that top 10? CB Dollaway? You think Thiago Santos can't beat CB Dollaway?
I'd love to see it. I would love to see Santos. Beat this.
Yeah. Like the fringes of the top 10 at middleweight, that those edge areas, Rafael Natal is like biting at that.
Yeah.
It's not a deep division.
No, it's not. It's not. And Marquardt's pretty much the first named fighter Santos has had, and Marquardt is well past his expiration date, and presumably has cut way back on the performance-enhancing drugs, which have been a staple in his career. I mean, the guy's been busted twice. I'm just going to come out and say it.
Yeah, I know. There's no mystery there.
Yeah, and so, it's like Santos looked good. Big capoeira game, lots of kicking, a lot of wild stuff, but not out of control, and respected Marquardt's potential for inflicting physical harm nicely and just beat him badly.
Yeah, it was a really great performance. I don't even, it's not even to me. It's not like, oh, he beat Marquardt. I think he's a top 10 fighter. He looked really good. He looked safe. He looked in control. He looked like he knew exactly what he wanted to do, and he's learned to find some. He's slowly tightening up his boxing game, which like. After his first exchange in this fight, I joked that he still punches like there's a bee in his car.
Yes. Yes. There is a wild, panicked flailing, but his kicks are so sweet and so controlled, and he can really take some risks with his kicking game because it's so tight, and it's a lovely thing to see.
And the combination he finished off, his boxing combination he finished off with looks like a lot more controlled. And he looks like even if he's not necessarily finding the cleanest technique with his hands, he's got accuracy and speed, and that counts for a lot.
Yeah, that definitely does. And now we get to the show capper of the prelim fight. Demian Maia utterly dominates Matt Brown. Matt Brown had a rough time in Brazil, and flipping off the crowd probably wasn't the best move at the weigh-ins. Was assaulted en route to the cage. And then just got de-pantsed by Demian Maia for 3 long rounds before finally succumbing to a rear naked choke. And really, hats off to Matt Brown for that, because surviving with Demian Maia on your back for that long is a feat.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, Maia the more you struggle, the more likely Maia is to submit you.
Yeah,
guys who tend to just like really shell up and play safe and just try to survive on the ground tend to survive. They tend to, lose badly, but they tend to make it to the end of the fight.
And people who are stranded in Death Valley in their cars who hide underneath it and drink their own urine tend to survive. It's what you got to do,
Exactly.
I mean, it's what you got to do.
Brown has never been that dude. He's always going to be trying to get out, trying to turn the tables, trying to do whatever he can. And at some point, when you do enough of that, it's going to cost you against Maia. And
Yeah.
you eventually found that rear naked choke he was looking for all fight. And you could see there was like a moment when Maia sunk it in and Brown's eyes just went wide. Oh man.
Yeah, he knew it was
done.
there. And by all accounts, Demian Maia has an incredible squeeze on his chokeholds. And apparently the experience of grappling with a really top world champion level jiu-jitsu player like Maia is every little adjustment they make is to their advantage, and every little bit of leverage is maximized, and you're just in contact with a very different animal. It's like suddenly finding yourself in the embrace of an anaconda, and there you go. And so great performance from Demian Maia. Kind of leaves Matt Brown even further out in the cold and welterweight division, and Maia's slowly making a case that at some point he deserves a title shot.
Yeah, I mean, if they gave one to Tyron Woodley, I don't see why not Demian Maia.
Yeah.
Honestly, Woodley's case for a shot at this point is weaker.
Yeah, Maia's got more of a name. He's fought for a title belt before. It was a terrible
fight. More
exciting. Yeah. Well, now even, but that fight against Anderson Silva was at UFC 110.
I know, but when Tyron Woodley isn't knocking somebody out, his fights are like the least thrilling fights in the world.
Unless you love men leaning against each other up against the cage.
Or just watching each other. Mostly it's just dudes watching each other.
And circling.
And circling. Lots of watching each other, lots of circling.
Some feints. Yes.
Yeah.
And it could erupt. It could erupt into a clinch up against the cage at any point. That's the exciting part. Yeah, so all right. So enough silliness. Let's get back to the main event. Stipe Miocic, the new heavyweight champion of the UFC. Great performance from the kid from Cleveland Croatia by way of Cleveland. What can you say? He's probably going to get to fight Cain Velasquez. And here's the question I had for you that we didn't get to before. If Cain is, say, 90% of the Cain Velasquez we knew before all his various injuries, does Stipe have a chance?
I mean, it's heavyweight. He's always got a shot. Like, I think it's fair to say he has a chance, but I mean, it's not a great one. It's still like the secret to beating Cain Velasquez so far has really honestly been you either knock him out with one shot, which has gotten more difficult, or you fight him at elevation and make sure he doesn't prepare very well.
Yes. Although I think Werdum is a bad stylistic matchup for Cain in a way that Stipe's not going to do.
Because he can force a stand-up out of Velasquez because Velasquez could not go to the ground with him. And that meant that Velasquez had to rely even more heavily on a stand-up game that, while functional, was also a lot more likely to gas him out than his usual style.
Yeah.
And Miocic can't do that same thing.
No, Miocic is sort of a guy who's not quite as good at Cain at everything. He's not quite the wrestler. He might be better at boxer. He's a better boxer, but the overall game, I mean, Cain can still hurt you, and Cain can protect himself on the feet pretty well. But I see Cain putting the grind on Stipe in a big way.
I do too, but I'm not like it really depends on whether or not Cain Velasquez is still Cain Velasquez too, because so much of his game was not just based on his cardio, but just on his ability to push his body for long extended periods of time, to be really explosive in spots that you didn't expect him to be. And I don't know if you've seen this, but they put together a GIF which it seems like really silly and just kind of basic, but it's honestly a little troubling, of Cain Velasquez's pre-fight warm-up when he's in the cage. And it's him because he does these like squats and like not burpees, but just like jumping up from a squat, squats.
Squats and lunges?
Yeah, he does some jump squats before every fight. And then, early in his career, you can see him and he's just like jumping way up in the air and everything. And then like in his most recent fights, he's just kind of like, barely just hopping off the cage like a couple inches, and just a fraction of the explosive burst that he had when he started out. And that's kind of like, that does say something.
That says a lot about your knees, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you combine that with the rotator cuff injury, and you're dealing with a man who is limb-wise, about 1/3 what he used to be, or 1/4 what he used to be. And so, yeah. But we'll see. Hopefully we'll find out sometime in the UFC 200s. I don't know when, 206 maybe, 207.
Coming right up. That would be great. I mean, I like Stipe at the top because I like seeing fresh fights and fresh guys up there, and I'm sure Werdum could argue for another shot too. He got one punch planted. He has a case to make another run if he can and go out and get a win, come right back and fight Stipe again. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and the wins are out there. I mean, Werdum could fight Stefan Struve, boom, get a win. I mean, there's it's the UFC heavyweight division, so
Arlovsky's probably getting the next shot off a win over Andrei Arlovsky. I'm pretty sure Werdum can Andrei Arlovsky.
Yeah. He could. Yeah. You could see that happening. So I'm going to resist the temptation to ask you how Stipe Miocic would stack up against random heavyweights from the past, say Dan Severn in 1996. Or...
Please.
But yeah. So, or how about Bigfoot Silva when he was still fighting at 300 pounds? And was young and vicious. So yeah. Anyway, we'll skip all that folderol, and I believe that's our show. So follow us on Twitter @KidNate, @TheZaneSimon. Read us at BloodyElbow.com. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube, MMA Nation on iTunes if you want the audio without the ugly. We'll have Knuckle Up tomorrow. We'll have If I Did It next week. Is there a fight card next week? UFC Fight Night Almeida versus Garbrandt is the next one, and that is May 29th. So we have a week off.
Yes.
And apologies to Bellator fans. That card looked very promising, and it completely fell apart. And I'm not really interested in talking about a King Mo Phil Davis fight. And
we did miss talking about Warlley Alves crap in the bed at home, but
yes, we absolutely did. He was the first Brazilian fighter to lose on the card. And did we skip the fight entirely?
We skipped the fight entirely. Fair to say, he crapped the bed. He's fighting guys. He's fighting with the belief that he can beat everybody in the first round, and in the UFC, that's just not true. You can't. No. You can't fight on that faith that you're going to win every fight in round one and then try to coast out a decision.
Absolutely not. And Brian Barberina definitely deserves a mention for winning the pay-per-view opener. Wasn't even supposed to be on the pay-per-view. Anderson Silva was supposed to fight Uriah Hall. Had to go out for gallbladder surgery. So, this is another upset. He beat Sage Northcutt in his last fight. So this guy –
This is a way more impressive upset.
Yes, although slightly lower profile in the way that UFC marketing works. But to open up a pay-per-view by going to Brazil and breaking the win streak for the Brazilian fighters and basically crapping in the house of the Brazilian fans, I'd say that deserves some attention, especially after crapping on Sage Northcutt's hype and career. So this kid is a spoiler. He's definitely a spoiler. Yeah. So my apologies for skipping that fight completely, but I was eager to get to the rest of the pay-per-view. What can I say? All right. Well, that's our night. So thanks a lot, Zane Simon. Adios, MMA aficionados. We'll see you next time.